So, babies and you actually embody this essence of the inner shaman. It's when you are in tune with the truth of your being and your own inner wisdom. And when you do, you transform the whole atmosphere around you, just like a baby. Have you ever seen a baby laughing and smiling at you? It is impossible not to join in for them. At least it is for me. They're also the same. They're totally congruent, in touch with their inner wisdom when they're mad or when they're upset. They totally exemplify the inner shaman. Shaman operate in the indigenous cultures all over the planet, but in North America there are medicine men and medicine women. And now, as that term is becoming more and more part of the collective, we are using it to speak not only of the spiritual part of ourselves, the essence of us, but also that's a term that's given to powerful teachers or philosophers and healers. We all have this essence, and it operates in the background of our life until something happens, or in some way it gets our attention and our awareness. And then we begin to give it our permission to engage with it. And any time that you are really still and you slow down and you move back into this inner place inside of yourself, you are beginning to access this part of you that has such a huge influence and so much power in your life. This has been called essence, spirit, soul, source, the Tai Chi, the Tao, the Christ light, but most accurately, by no name at all. Lots of you can intentionally and on purpose access this awareness in yourself. For me, I love how Ron is able to bring me into that place instantly in his Sunday morning meditations. So using the swan to tell this story of accessing our inner shaman was a profound choice by Hans Christian Andersen. I don't know if he knew that in Native American traditions, the swan represents transformation and the light of the inner spirit. In the Hindu tradition, the swan means to be in the flow. So when you put those two concepts together from both of those traditions, the swan means the inner light of spirit that's in the flow. When you are in that place, as you are this morning, you are flowing in the inner light of spirit. Hans Christian Andersen, in his story, the swan was like that when he first hatched. It just experienced what was. It didn't know that it was a big brown egg and all the other eggs were smaller than it and that it was in the wrong nest. He didn't have any judgment of himself at all. He just was. It wasn't until all the other ducks started pecking and bullying him and rejecting him that he started to define himself by what happened to him, by who he stood in front of and how he was treated by them. He defined himself by them. So his journey to come back home to himself, to his swanness that he came in with when he was born, is a metaphor for enlightenment. It comes as we take our own journey to find what's in our core, our essence. It's not just about overcoming discrimination or finding our full potential. It's a story about the discovery of our divinity. This poor swan, for a long time, just like us, got lost in all of his illusions of who he was not. He was gray instead of yellow, he was bigger than everybody, and he just didn't quack right at all. His adopted mother loved him, and she protected him. But ultimately, that wasn't enough. He had to find this truth out for himself. And to do that, he was lonely. He had to leave his collective. And we get really lonely too when we're not connected with the truth of who we are. Sometimes, like the swan, we can feel left out or different. Or maybe we follow the flock and try and fit in. Maybe as you can identify with that, where you might have left your spiritual tradition that you were born into, or to find one that matched the truth of who you are, or at least supported it as you were looking for your way to access the inner shaman. So when you awaken to your inner shaman, you realize that you are the swan. You are the light of spirit. Inside of you, there is this core essence. But it also means that you find a way to access that state again and again, so that it's not a belief that's somewhere out there. It actually comes from inside of you through your experience. You have to learn how it operates for you so that you can find it again and again. When the swan looked into the lake and he saw who he was, he flew. As soon as we get it, as soon as we know the truth of who we are, we fly. But for us, our flying is that we just don't think about ourselves in the same way again. We don't fly or leave. Our flock isn't a specific group of people or a place. It's all of the universe, all of creation. The swan is not better or less than any other of the ducks or any other expression of life, and neither are we. We're all in this together, manifestations of the very, very same essence. We still, as the Buddhists say, have to chop wood and carry water. But the difference is we do it with an awareness of the unity of life and with a connection to our inner shaman. I don't stay in that place of the inner shaman, and I don't actually think anybody else does either. But I can get there. I can come home to that awareness inside of myself, of who I am, of my divinity, and when I do, I enter back into the flow of life. I would love it if you, right even in this moment, were aware that you are accessing the inner shaman, or maybe you did during the meditation this morning. If not, it's okay, it'll come to you with practice. What you do is you become very present, focus on one point, put your attention there, then you let your awareness expand to what's around you, then move into your heart and remember a time, some time when you had a feeling, a strong feeling, and then let that radiate from your heart. And there you are. That is that beautiful swanness of you, the inner shaman. It's that magnificent place where the shaman lives. And when you get there, it's not stagnant. You can ask it questions. You can ask for guidance, for help. And for me, it shows up as synchronicity or just things that might happen. What this experience feels like and how it results is different for everyone. Ultimately, though, it's about the energy of love in no matter what form it comes in, and it connects us to all of life. When the swan found it, his connection is being shown by his connection to the community of swans when he said, this is who I am, this is where I belong. So if it's true that we all have an inner shaman, and my experience is that we do, how come we don't know it? There's these studies in psychology where they took kittens and they put them in a room where they made stripes going across everything. They made horizontal stripes. And they raised the kittens in that room, I don't remember for how long, maybe 6 months. And then they took them into another room where all the stripes were vertical stripes. And the poor kittens ran into everything. They couldn't see. It's just like us. We get imprinted by our culture, by our society, and by our family. And we begin to think that the world is this certain way. And we filter out everything else that doesn't match how we think it is. We put up these kind of retaining walls. We don't mean to. It's just what happens. And that's what happened to the swan. When he came across his own beings, his other swan, he was expecting to have the same experience. He expected to be pecked at and bullied, so he hid in the reeds. He cried. Some stories say he stayed there all winter long and he never talked to anybody. He just stayed all by himself. But he got to a place where he just finally got to this place where he just wanted to be dead. He didn't care if he was alive or not. He was so miserable, he just thought he had no other choice. And that's what happens to us. Rumi said, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And this swan was ready. He was ready for some kind of change. And these swans came over to him and they said, "Hey, what's going on with you? How come you always stay by yourself? Are you shy or what's the matter?" His teachers had come. And he said, "Well, it's because I'm ugly." And they laughed and said, "Are you kidding? Have you looked at yourself in the water? Have you seen who you really are?" And that's what we need. We need to hear that kind of teaching somewhere in life that says, "Do you know who you are? Are you kidding? Look in the water." And when the swan did, he saw that he had grown up during that time, and there he was with his long neck and his fluffy white feathers, and he realized he was a swan. And that's actually who we are. It's your true identity. There's a swan in you, and I know some of you, you totally get this and you live in it. Some of you, I hope to be encouraging to move into this place of thinking, well, is it true? Do I really have this inner swan inside of myself? Is there such a thing as an inner shaman? What's she talking about? So, there was this part of this book called Awaken the Inner Shaman. In that book, he talks a lot about science, and he talks a lot about quantum physics and about your DNA and switching on the genes and switching them off. And I love that part of the book. And I at first wrote it into this talk, but it made this talk very long. So I had to take it out. But what I would just like you to get from that is buy the book if you're interested. It's a fantastic book with exercises and all this information. But also what I would just like you to get is nothing that the shaman have said in their indigenous cultures for thousands of years contradicts with science. So to me, it's as if science is just catching up with what has already been known about who we actually are and what life actually is. There are 1,000 million billion ways to access this inner shaman inside of you. There's not a right way. There's not only one way. There is your way to find it. There's nothing that doesn't contain that Tao or the inner shaman. So I really encourage you to find your own version of how your swan inside of you flies. We can invent our own. When I left my traditional fundamentalist Christianity, what I decided is, I just don't want to believe in a God that sends people to hell. That's just not right for me. So I started thinking about it. But if God's omnipotent and omnipresent and all-pervading, I wonder if he's something like hydrogen. And I'm so glad that I didn't pursue that, because can you imagine if I had to invent my own hydrogen path? And then I'd have to figure out how to access the hydrogen in me, all that stuff. It's like, I'm really grateful for all the teachers that have led me on my way, that have come to me and said, "Look, you're a swan, you're a shaman in there." So I'm grateful to them. And starting this week on Wednesday night at 6:30 for every other week, I'm going to be conducting classes on this book, using the material from this book to help us learn to access this point in ourselves and to deepen that connection. And so what I really particularly like about this is, if you've heard me talk before, I have studied heart rhythm meditation for about 18 to 20 years. But now I'm also beginning to expand this to not only that PowerPoint to access the inner shaman, but the place of you that is a PowerPoint in behind your third eye in the center of your head, where your deep wisdom lies. And then also right around your navel, where is your dantian, where the power comes from and the action that you take. So this morning in the meditation, I only put 2 of those together. I hope it wasn't overwhelming for you. But there's actually a third, and I thought, oh no, I better not talk about that one too. But I really love how the exercises in this book go sequentially, step by step by step by step. The swan found his way to live the truth of himself. He moved from separation to unity consciousness, and he found the practice that lifted him up, that lifted up his vibration and let him fly. I want that for all of humanity. I want that for me more and more deeply. And if it interests you, I want it for you. So at the end, to end this, I would like to end with 2 quotes from Rumi. One is, "Stop acting so small. You are the universe in ecstatic motion." And the last one, "You were born with wings. Why prefer to crawl through life?" Thank you very much.